Senator Bill Hagerty. He sits on the Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, so we talked about the judicial warrants and some of the other things that you've pointed out. What are Republicans willing to agree to with respect to ICE reforms instead of having another government shutdown?
Well, I think it's clear ICE themselves are ready to deal with the body cameras, and there are a number of things we could talk about. But as you mentioned, this isn't a serious negotiation. This is all happening in the media, trying to motivate a radical left base. The main difference between what we're seeing in Minneapolis, Shannon, and the situation that you and Senator Warner were just discussing is a lack of cooperation. Look no further than Memphis, Tennessee. In Memphis, in Tennessee, we actually have cooperation with local authorities. If the local authorities would cooperate in Minneapolis with ICE, they would issue the detainer. The ICE agent would go directly to the jail, pick up the person, and move on. It takes 4 to 8 times more agents to go into the field to go after the same criminal. That's why you have so many people in Minneapolis. That's why this is so chaotic, because the Democrats, the local leadership, Tim Walz, the mayor of Minneapolis, are actively encouraging people to resist. They are not agreeing. They're not cooperating with authorities at the federal level. And the result is utter chaos in Minneapolis. Go to Memphis. Memphis is now becoming one of the safest cities in America because we do have cooperation at the local level, at the state level, and the federal level. We have 16 agencies at the federal level working with Memphis, and Memphis has been dramatically improved in terms of the reduction of crime on the streets and in the neighborhoods.
All right, there seems to be a lot of skepticism, though, that whatever the ICE reforms are, and the body cams seem to be the one big agreement. There are so many other things on this list that there isn't agreement about. All the polling showed us that most Americans blamed Republicans last time there was this epic shutdown just months ago. How do Republicans thread that needle?
I think Democrats are going to have a very hard time shutting the government down just so they can perpetuate the kind of chaos that's going on in Minneapolis. Look, there's a reason why ICE does not want to have their badges and their names on their uniforms. There's a reason why they're masking, because threats have risen 1,300%. Death threats against ICE agents. They're being doxxed. The left has gone completely overboard, and they're threatening the safety and security of our agents so that they cannot do their job. This is something we need to look at very carefully. The request that we should put ICE agents in harm's way is absolutely intolerable. And again, the Democrats need to get serious. If they do shut the government down, it's not going to have an impact, as you said. You discussed this earlier. It's going to impact the Coast Guard. It's going to impact TSA. It's going to impact FEMA in our state. We've had massive ice storms. Let's shut that down. Is that the argument that the Democrats want to make? Friday at midnight, we'll find out. I don't think the American public are going to believe this is the right path to follow.
All right. Well, we'll see next Sunday if we're talking about another shutdown or somehow you guys have found agreement. But I want to make sure that we get to some foreign policy as well. You sit on foreign relations. So we've just wrapped this round of talks with Iran. National Review says this: what the Iranians want is to stall, leading Witkoff and Kushner by the nose with the promise of an elusive diplomatic breakthrough looming just over the horizon. Here's what Senator Lindsey Graham told me on the show here last week.
The one thing you can't do as president: talk like Reagan and act like Obama. There's no deal to be done here. These people are not trustworthy.
So do you think these talks are going to be productive? Do we get to anything concrete? We don't even have essentially direct talks with Iran, and we're not talking with the Ayatollah, who actually calls the shots there.
Mm-hmm. So what's different now, and I think we need to pay careful attention to this, Shannon. What's different now is we're not just talking diplomatic talks. You saw Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and importantly, Admiral Brad Cooper in the room, our lead military officer there who runs CENTCOM, importantly in the room with the negotiations in Oman just taking place. What you also see is a significant military movement. So it's not just diplomatic pressure. Military pressure is coming to play in a very significant way. The other aspect, which I think fails to be covered enough, is the economic pressure on Iran is significant. The rial is in a tailspin. If you look at what we've done in terms of secondary sanctions, look no further. We were talking about our allies and the importance of having our allies with Senator Warner earlier. We just signed a trade deal with India. India is no longer going to buy Iranian crude. India is going to buy that oil now from Venezuela. This is the type of economic pressure, again, married with military pressure and diplomatic pressure, that actually puts President Trump in a much more serious bargaining position to achieve what he's trying to accomplish.
Well, and I want to touch on the Russia nuclear arms control situation as well. As I talked about with Senator Warner, you used to be an ambassador to Japan. You understand the Asia-Pacific region. Can we get China to the table? They seem to have no appetite to having this conversation. And if so, do we move forward with a deal with Russia only?
Well, getting China to the table is its own argument, and I think, again, that gets back to pressure as well. President Trump is taking significant movements. You look again at Venezuela, who's the largest purchaser of the illicit oil from Venezuela. It's China, putting more pressure on China at every turn. The other aspect of this, though, is that if you look at Russia, they have not complied with the START treaty. Is this a bad deal? Is absolutely is a bad deal. If you look at the new technologies, the new military technologies that Russia is working on right now, nuclear armed torpedoes that they are saying are off the table, the types of weaponry that would be used to attack our coastal cities, new nuclear powered missiles that, again, they're saying would be off the deal, off the table. What we're looking at is a situation that the United States would be far more constrained than Russia. No one should do a deal like that. The terms of the deal that Biden was happy to extend were far more disfavorable to the United States than to Russia. And again, look at Russia's behavior since their invasion of Ukraine in 2023. They basically have stopped cooperating altogether. So the terms of trade with Russia are not adequate right now. And again, getting China to the table, as you well note, that's a complicated additional agreement. I agree that that's where we should be, that China should be at a table and part of the agreement, but I'm not saying it'll be easy.
Well, yeah, and President Trump, it looks like he's going to have some conversations and visit with President Xi coming up in April, so that's going to be front and center,
Yes.
I have no doubt. Okay, one more domestic issue before we let you go. The SAVE Act, which is going to require people to have proof of citizenship before they can vote in federal elections. Republicans opposed efforts years ago during the Biden administration to have any kind of federal umbrella or national piece of law with respect to how states are conducting their elections. Here's what you said in 2021 about that.
What this is an effort to rewrite election laws in all 50 states of the nation. It's an abject power grab, and I think that we should reject this in its entirety.
Now, I know there were different elements to that law, but here's what the Wall Street Journal editorial board is saying about now. They said Mr. Trump's call to nationalize elections is a mistake for the GOP since Democrats will be only too eager to try again on their terms the nanosecond they regain power. You had concerns in 2021. You heard what Senator Warner said. It's being characterized as a federal takeover by the Trump administration. Why move forward with the SAVE Act if it opens the door to Democrats taking similar action down the road?
I wouldn't say this is an across-the-board nationalization at all. It's one fundamental question, and that is, are you a citizen and can you prove it? Because those are the only people that should be voting, and that can be done on a nationwide basis. The problem is that we have Democrat states that don't want to have, they want to have non-citizens eligible to vote. This does not remove the state's ability to set the terms, the conditions, and the place for elections. All of those terms, this would address the state's ability to regulate, for example, ballot harvesting, the methods that would take place. That if we see the Democrat strategy, they want to have about as loose a possible situation as they can. This is how states vary. If you look at the states where we have significant problems, those are blue states, Democrat-held states, and that's where they wanted to go with their legislation, was to loosen all the requirements. This is one where more than 80% of Americans agree. A person should be a citizen and be able to prove it in order to vote.
Yeah, and the polling is there too across all kinds of backgrounds and nationalities, racial minorities. When it comes to voter ID, there seems to be a lot of support. We know there's more to the SAVE Act. We'll follow it on the Hill. Senator, thank you very much.
Thank you, Shannon. Great to be with you.